Well, happy Father's Day. I miss my dad. I also wanted to say, if you'll permit me, just a personal word. I wanted to say happy birthday to my wife, Paula. Those of you who know me know that I'm a pretty shy person. I don't like the limelight. Don't like to have my picture in the paper or anything, but Paula relishes being the center of attention. And I do say this is one of those big ones, so. Wherever you want to go to lunch, dear, you name it, any place, as long as you can have any sandwich on the menu, really. Well, it seems like sort of a strange text for Father's Day, but here it is. In the 3rd chapter of Mark, while Jesus is busy speaking to the crowds, his mother and brothers show up, and they are obviously anxious to have a word with him. And the crowd around Jesus says to him, "Your mom and your brothers are outside, and they're here to see you." So Jesus immediately says to the crowd, "Look, I'm very sorry for this interruption. You'll need to excuse me for just a minute. I promise I'll be right back," but as we all know, family comes first. Well, that would be a perfect story for Father's Day or Mother's Day. It would really be a perfect story for Family Dedication Sunday. We could throw in the text, "Honor your father and mother." Even if you're in the middle of teaching and healing, or if you're busy at school or at work, if members of your family show up and they want to have a word with you, then stop whatever you're doing and give them your full attention. A lesson in traditional family values from Jesus himself. Except that's not how the story goes. That's not what Jesus said. Your mother, your brothers are outside. Who is my mother? Who are my brothers? Now, what kind of response is that? Who would speak to members of your family like that? Parents with a young person in middle school learn to expect that kind of treatment. No offense to any middle schoolers here. But Jesus was somewhere around 30 years old. He should have known better. What's behind Jesus' scandalous and socially unacceptable response? Who is my mother? Who are my brothers? I began working on this sermon while I was sitting at my desk at home, and I looked up, and on the wall to my left were pictures of Paula on our wedding day, June the 26th, 1976. She was beautiful in her wedding dress, and honey, you look even better now. That's it. There are no more references to you. I'm going to pay for this. Okay. On the wall in front of me were more pictures of my mom and dad walking on Peachtree Street, downtown Atlanta in 1939, the year they were married. Pictures of my 2 brothers, pictures of both sets of grandparents, lots of pictures of our boys, David and Haynes, baby pictures and pictures of them doing sports, and graduation pictures and wedding pictures. You get the picture, no pun intended. The walls surrounding my desk at home are draped with family pictures. Family. What's more important than family? We may not always get along. Our family can be the greatest source of stress and frustration and anger and disappointment and grief, but our family can also be the source of our greatest joy and sense of meaning and fulfillment in life, and we'll do pretty much anything for the members of our family. We'll sacrifice for them, brag on them incessantly, forgive them when they mess up, love them through thick and thin, and defend them against any threats. Don't mess with my family. I mean it. Don't mess with my family. They aren't perfect, but they're my family, and if you come after them, you're in for a fight. What's more important than family? Well, you may have heard this story. A man had center court seats for the finals of the ACC basketball tournament. And as he sat down, he noticed that the seat next to him was empty. And so he asked the man on the other side of the empty seat whether anyone was going to be sitting there. "No," the man replied, "this seat is empty." "Well, this is incredible," said the first man. "Who in their right mind would have a ticket for a giant game like this, a great game like this, and a great seat for the ACC finals and not use it?" The second man replied, "Well, actually, sir, the seat belongs to me. I was supposed to be here with my wife, but she passed away. And this will be the first time that we haven't been to the ACC championship game together since we were married in 1967. She was a wonderful woman, and I loved her very, very much." "I'm so sorry to hear that," said the first man. That's terrible. And I don't mean to be insensitive, but couldn't you find someone else? Couldn't you find a friend or a relative or even a neighbor perhaps to come with you and take this seat? The man shook his head. "No," he replied, "they are all at her funeral." So, perhaps there are exceptions, but most of the time, family is top priority. And yet Jesus says, "Who is my mother? Who are my brothers?" What's up with this? According to Mark's story, Jesus' family arrives on the scene intending to restrain him. That's the word that's used. They were trying to muzzle him, trying to get him to shut up, because word was out about what people were saying about Jesus. His family showed up to take charge of him and persuade him to come home with them. Jesus' family knew that people were beginning to say that he was insane, that he was out of his mind, and highly respected religious authorities were claiming that Jesus was of the devil. Jesus' family shows up to constrain him out of concern for him and probably out of concern for reputation and safety for the whole family. It's not hard to imagine what Jesus' family thought about him. You can imagine it. What's wrong with this boy? He's always been a little strange and impossible to manage. He's on his own little mission. We never know what he's going to say, never know what he's going to do. No wonder some people say he's out of his mind. He eats with the outcast and the sinners, the tax collectors. He stands up for a woman caught in adultery. He talks to a Samaritan woman. He touches lepers. Why does he do these crazy things? If someone strikes you on one cheek, turn the other cheek. Go and sell what you have and give all the money to the poor. Why does our boy say these crazy things? Some people seem to love him and they want to follow him, but every time he opens his mouth, he makes people in powerful positions mad, and you can see their anger intensifying. They're going to come after our boy sooner or later. And who knows? We are his family. They may come after us too. It's no wonder that Jesus' family tried to restrain him. He was always getting in trouble. I don't think Jesus was mad at his mama. He was not being callous or impolite. He was not being rebellious or trying to disown his family. He was making a point, I think. He was redefining family. And he was expanding our very narrow and limited sense of identity. I love this quote from Carl Jung. Jung wrote this: "The fundamental, essential question for all humanity is this: are we related to something infinite or not?" Fundamental, essential question of all humanity. Are you and I related to something infinite or not? Are we connected to something greater, something more, something beyond that which we can see and touch and understand? None of us in here today need to be reminded that family ties are not infinite. We have all lost family members, and we know that it hurts. And none of us in here today need to be reminded that friendships are not infinite. We have all lost close friends, and we know that it is very difficult. Jesus is pointing to a family tie, if you will, a kinship, a relationship that is even more central than family. We are, all of us, children of God. Now, I don't know if you really believe that. And at times, I'm not sure that I believe it from a purely intellectual point of view. It's hard for me to wrap my mind around that. But there are times when I feel it and experience it. And I bet there are times like that for you as well. I bet there are times when you are looking out at the ocean, or you're walking in the woods, or standing beside a mountain stream. I bet there are times when you're very still and quiet, and you feel something inside, something very deep inside of you that you can't possibly explain or describe, but you know it is real. I bet for some of you that there have been moments in this place, in this sacred place, where you've witnessed something. Perhaps it was a baptism service or a communion service, or you heard something sung or played or spoken, and you sensed that you were catching some glimpse of the grace of God. And you felt caught up in something that you could only describe as a holy experience, a sacred moment. And this part I know for sure. I know this is true for many of you. There have been times of darkness and despair, times of physical and emotional struggling for you or as an individual or for a member of your family. But in the midst of it, you felt like you were being held by a loving presence. At some incredibly deep level, you knew that you were not alone. And you sensed a holy presence holding you and strengthening you. You felt the power and the majesty of grace. I know that because I've heard you talk about it. You felt hope, and you experienced a peace beyond your understanding. We are all children of God. This is not some sort of provable, definable, even to me understandable concept. It's a statement of faith. It's a profession of deep faith, not based on what is seen, but on what is unseen, as Paul said. When it comes to religion, I have all sorts of secret doubts and questions, and sometimes just downright skepticism. But there have been times when I have experienced an incredible sense of awe and wonder and mystery. There have been moments of light, open eyes and open hearts. There have been moments when it was clear that indeed we do live and move and have our being within the loving presence of God. And many of those times, probably most of those times, have come within the context of this family of faith. Take off your shoes, because we're walking on holy ground. Thomas Merton said it very well. Our true identity, our ultimate identity, is hidden in the love and mercy of God. A newborn baby is brought home for the first time, and the family's older child is a precocious little 4-year-old girl, and she announces to her parents, "I want to talk to my new baby brother, and I want to talk to him alone." The surprised parents were not sure about this, but they decided to let the little 4-year-old go into the nursery alone with the new baby. And they put their ears to the door so they could hear exactly what was going on. And they heard their 4-year-old daughter say to her new baby brother, "Quick, tell me who made you. Tell me where you came from, because I'm beginning to forget." And we do forget, don't we? The words of Jesus in today's gospel lesson serve to remind us who we are and to whom we ultimately belong. We are children of God, called to be family to each other and to do the will of God, which is given expression and modeled for us in the life of Christ. A certain spiritual teacher once asked his disciples, "How can you tell when the night has ended and the day has begun?" And one of the students said, "When you can see an animal way off in the distance and tell if it's a cow or a horse." "No," the teacher said. A second disciple spoke up, "Well, it's when you can see an evergreen tree way in the distance and you can tell if that tree is a pine or a fir." "No," again, the teacher said. "Well, then," the disciples asked their teacher, "how can one tell when the night has ended and the day has begun?" And the teacher answered, "It is when you can look into the face of any man and recognize in him the face of your brother, or when you can look into the face of any woman and see in her the face of your sister. If you cannot do this," the teacher said, "then no matter what time it is by the sun, it is still night." We are related to something infinite. All of us are children of God. May the eyes of all our hearts be enlightened.